Greetings to you, my friends. I am delighted to be with you. I'm even more delighted to have you with me, even if it is in this particular fashion. Several of us have gathered here in our living room, and I appreciate all of you who have come today to share this time live. And for those of you in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, welcome. There are just a couple of things that you should be aware of. If during this live streaming event, it's kind of interesting to me. I've never done one of these before, so if something happens and things go blank on your screen, or there's a loss of volume, or there's a loss of picture, just sit tight. Don't try to change anything. We'll fix it on our end, and you'll still be there for the live stream when we come back on. Secondly, I want to make you aware of the new website, skipross.com, and the things that are there. Many of you are watching on skipross.com, but others of you are watching on Facebook and various ways. So there are a number of things in terms of materials, and you go to www.skipross.com/media, and you can find a number of the things that some of which are brand new to many of you. I, in fact, in preparation for our time together today, sat down and listened through all the way, start to finish, the first recording ever made of dynamic living in 1977 in Texas, as I recall. And Susan came in while I was listening, and I said, "Do you know who that is?" And she listened and listened, and then I giggled. And she said, "Well, that's you, but it's a higher voice." I said, "Well, yeah, I guess that's probably something that's happened to me over the years." So we're here together, and there are three foundational things that I want to lay before you as we begin our discussion today. Number one, God is God, and I am not. You say, "Whoa, wait a minute, I mean, that's right out front." It is, because that's who I am. And that's the only way I know how to communicate with you. Secondly, God is in control. Over the course of the last several months, I have learned that in a new way. And that's part of what we want to share with you today. The third thing is that God loves me. And I guess by extension, I would say God loves you. So that forms the foundation of everything that we'll talk about today. But I want you to be aware that we're going to meddle around a little bit in all sorts of areas of your life. We'll probably talk a little bit about parenting. We'll talk a little bit about marriage relationships. We'll talk a little bit about our business. We'll talk a little bit about your physical life and your spiritual dimension. We want to bring in all 6 major areas of life as we talk together today. But the foundation of all of it is those 3 thoughts. So we ask the question, first of all, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Where are we going with all of this? Why are you here? Why am I here? Why are you here? Those of you who have joined us. You see, it's really important for all of us to know where we're going and have a clear picture in our mind of where we're going. Well, it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago now, Susan and I boarded a plane in Las Vegas. It was late afternoon, and the pilot came on as we were waiting to depart. And he said, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to welcome you aboard Flight 1467. We are bound nonstop for Tampa, Florida. We'll be taking off in about 3 minutes. We'll climb to an altitude of 33,000 feet. And we expect a clear ride, though I want you to pay attention to the seatbelt sign, because there's reported some light turbulence in some areas. I may have to turn it on, but basically we're going to have a great flight. We'll land in Tampa, and when we land in Tampa, the weather will be probably 80, maybe 78 or 80, and a very clear, warm, wonderful evening." Now, that was very reassuring. That's a pilot that knows where he's going, what his job is. pretend with me for just a moment. If we had gotten on that flight and the pilot had come on and said, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy to welcome you aboard our flight to who knows where." I don't know where we're going. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get there. I do hope we have enough fuel to get there, but we're going to have a great time while we fly. Anyhow, there's no indication of what the weather might be, but we'll have a good time. I tell you what, I'm getting off that plane. I'm not flying with a pilot that doesn't know where he's going. So I want us to know together in these short moments that we have together where we're going. I say short moments. There's so much to say and so little time to say it today, which is a little bit different than the feeling I had earlier in the week, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But earlier in the week, as I was preparing for this, my thought was more so much time and so little to say, because I hit a wall of preparation for our time together. We'll talk more about that as we move forward, but I do know today what it's all about and where we're going. So let me share that with you. Number one, it's all about personal growth. I'm specifically focused on my personal growth because I don't have a right to tell you how you need to grow or what you need to do, or I don't have the right to tell you what is the process for you to grow. So when I say personal growth, I'm talking about me personally. And there has been considerable growth, not only in the last 8 months in the challenges that have come to my life, but in the last 8 days of preparation for our time together. So we'll talk about personal growth. Secondly, we're all about today a communication connect. Now, there was a time just 8 months ago when I didn't know whether I'd be flying and traveling to other parts of the world, other parts of the country, and doing the speaking kinds of things that have kept me in touch with many of you. I didn't know whether I'd be doing Circle A again. And so as the time progressed and we began to understand that there probably would be a time, and then we came to a point where we said it certainly looks within the realm of God's plan that I'm going to be around for a while longer, and that I will be traveling and speaking and doing a Circle A, all those things. But in the meantime, in that interim where I have not been in touch with many of you and desiring to be so, the communication connection between you and me is a part of what we're all about today. I said to Susan in one of my blank wall times this past week, I sometimes feel like I've said everything I know to say to everybody that's going to be listening. What can I say to them? She said, "It doesn't matter what you say." Now, she said that in the very best way. She said they just need to see you and connect with you and know that you're okay. So here I am. I'm okay. You're okay. We're connected. That's a part of why we're getting together today. Number 3 is a refresher on dynamic living. As I have thought about the question, does dynamic living really work? Most people, in looking at me, would say, well, certainly it does, Skip. And you aren't challenged in your life. You aren't challenged, so obviously it works for you. But when you hit the wall, does it work then? There's a lot of people never think I hit the wall, but I do hit the wall, and I have all my life for that matter. But more specifically in these last months. And so a refresher on dynamic living and what it's all about. I discovered that there are a lot of people who are familiar with it, who make reference to it from time to time, but there are many of you who are listening to me today that may never have heard dynamic living, or you have heard it at some point or another, but it's not something that's really a deep part of how you live your life. And so I wanted to just take a bit of time today to kind of review the basics of the dynamic living seminar. Number 4, we're here today to talk about what I've learned. Are there lessons that I have learned? Now, I'm not here today to tell you something brand new. A friend of mine, friend because I have read a lot of what he wrote, not friend because I know him personally. I feel like I do many times. A friend of mine once said, "There's nothing new under the sun." If you're familiar with Ecclesiastes, you know where it came from. And so I'm not here today to tell you something brand new, except to say that there are times in one's life, in your life, in your life, in my life, when there is something that is brand new, even though you have seen it, heard it, talked it over and over again, all of a sudden it's brand new. And sometimes that's a relationship, sometimes that's a book, sometimes that's an audio that you're listening to, sometimes it's just an outdoor experience of life, but it's brand new. And so the lessons I've learned may not be new, they may not be new to you, but I'm going to try to share what is new at a new and different dimension for me. How I've come to understand some things that I've known for a long time. In fact, I've taught them for over 40 years. But they are new and fresh and more powerful in my own understanding and thinking today than they were 8 months ago. So we'll talk about some lessons learned. And number 5 is just take a look to the future. We are doing this for the very first time. But we planned it with the idea that we may do this again. Kind of a webcast, workshop, or whatever we determined to call it. And so if you're interested in that type of thing, keep touch with us through the website because we'll make an announcement of it. I think it's quite likely that by the end of the summer, we'll plan another one. And here's another thing I should say right now, lest I forget it later on. Once in a while I get so wrapped up in what I'm saying that I forget something that I should have said, and that is this. I would like for this to be an interactive workshop, so that if you have questions as I'm moving along, I understand there is a way by which you can get that information to us here, live, now. And I can respond to it before we're finished if time permits. But in thinking in terms of doing this again, over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, if you have questions, concerns, things that you would like for me to address in a workshop setting, I encourage you to just write that in. There is no question or no request that is ridiculous, in my opinion. And so just whatever you'd like to know about or me to talk about, please do that. So, our look to the future is a continuing communication connection. The second area of looking to the future is Circle A. And many of you today are with us on this webcast because of Circle A. That is our primary connection. And we want you to know a part of what this is all about is to say we are not stopping Circle A. We are just taking a brief sabbatical to rest, to think, to plan, and then next summer to launch a 40th anniversary celebration at camp that I am told will be better than anything we've ever done. And in my opinion, that's really going somewhere. But it will be an ongoing thing. We are committed to the youth that we've already connected with. But we are also committed to connecting with thousands more. And a part of the way that we connect with thousands more is through all of you and doing something like this. The third area of looking to the future is all about talking about personal goals. I'll share a little bit of mine, but I primarily want to challenge you about yours in that phase of our talk today. And number 4 is a 90-day challenge. You say, wait a minute, Skip, I think I've heard of 90-day challenges before. Oh, okay, you have. So let me rename this one. This one is 152 challenge. The 1 in 52 challenge. You say, well, what that's all about? Stay with us. It'll be the last thing we talk about today. And I'm very excited to make the challenge, primarily because of what's happened to me in the last 8 months. It's been life-changing. So let's talk about personal growth. By the way, I'm not sure that I said, yes, I am sure. I didn't say this, but I should have. About halfway through our time together today, we'll take an intermission. That's for you to go get a drink or use the restroom or whatever you need to do. Not for me. You understand? I don't need to do those kinds of things. But we'll make a little intermission time, probably about 10 minutes, then we'll be back on and moving forward. We think that's better for communication. We also think it's really important for communication. I talked about communication connection. You know, I'm here today and I'm really focused with you. I'm focused on the camera. I'm trying to include the guys that are here with us live from time to time, but we are here and we're focused, we're committed to this. You're there and you're in front of a screen and there may be nobody else. You may be just sitting looking at your phone and it's coming over your phone or an iPad, or maybe you got it projected on a screen, but there's nobody there, so you feel I can get up and I can move, I can go around, I can go here. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Take every ounce of your attention and focus on these moments we will invest together today. Not for my benefit. I don't know whether you'll do it or not. I'm not there with you in your living room or in your car or wherever you are. I'm not there. I don't know. But the challenge is for you, because that's the way you will get the most from our time together today. This, again, then, personal growth. This is a conversation with me. Whenever I speak, I've always tried to keep that in mind, that I'm having a conversation with me to talk to me about my life and where I am and where I'm going and what I've done and how I feel and how I think and how I'm progressing, all those kinds of things. And I'm inviting you to listen in on the conversation, so that if you hear something that I talk about that's applicable to me and you find it's good for you, take it, use it, change your life with it. If it's not applicable to you, be patient. Don't run away. Wait, because here's what I guarantee you, there will be something for you. Whoever you are, every one of you individually, there will be something for you today. I don't want you to miss it. We are always looking for someone who will walk through an open door of opportunity and inspire the next explosion of growth. Growth in an organization, growth in a family, growth in a relationship, growth in a company, a business, a job, a nation. We're always looking for that next person who will brave the open door and walk through not knowing what's on the other side and grow so that they're capable of walking through and continuing on to inspire and challenge others. So personal growth becomes very, very important for me. Growth is to seek and experience improvements daily. Daily. Robert Louis Stevenson said, to become, how many of you have ever heard of Robert Louis Stevenson? See, I can do that even on this. Every hand out there ought to be up. You say, Skip, I'm sitting in my living room by myself. Why was I ready? Because that's how you participate. Raise your hand. Okay. Anyhow. So, excuse me. I get tickled at myself every once in a while. It's just kind of the way it is. So Robert Louis Stevenson, I've said his name 4 times now, so everybody has heard of him. You may not know who he is, but you've heard of him. Okay. Robert Louis Stevenson said, to become what we are capable of becoming is the only end of life. That's the goal. That's where we're headed. To become what we are capable of becoming. There are, however, some misconceptions about personal growth. I may have talked with some of you about this before, but it bears repeating because it's something I remind myself of frequently. Number one, growth is not automatic. The misconception is that growth is automatic. After all, I am born, I begin to develop. We've got a new little grandson who is here today. You probably won't see him, but he's here. You probably won't hear him because he's with his mom in another room here at the house. But he is growing. It's just every day he's growing and changing, and we tend to think that's the way life is. No, that isn't the way life is. It's not automatic. To a certain extent, in the physical dimension of life, there is an automatic process of growth. But that growth is either as it should be, as it could be, potentially because we feed the body as we should, we nourish the body as we should, we rest the body as we should, or that growth is stunted because we don't do those things. Nothing about growth, even in the physical realm, is automatic. And certainly in the personal realm, in the relationship realm, in the success and business realm, there's nothing automatic about my growth to become a better person, a more accomplished person, any more than there is for you. Another misconception that people often have is that growth comes with experience. Well, the fact of the matter is some never learn from experience. So we have to evaluate experience. A little bit later on in our time together today, I will talk about the mentoring process, the coaching process, the teachability process. And I've learned some things at a new level about that is impacted by this particular thought about personal growth. Experience does not necessarily bring growth. It may just bring another experience. And sometimes people have the same experience again and 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 never benefit from it. So the growth the experiences that we have always need to be evaluated so that we can take from it the power to grow and become more of what we're capable of becoming. The third misconception is that growth comes from information. Well, there's lots of information. It is in this day, all you have to do is say Google or Siri, and you have access to massive amounts. Excuse me, my phone is here, and Siri thought I was talking to her. Go back to sleep. Anyhow, we have access to massive amounts of information. And there is the misconception that if we have access to it, we get it time and time and time again, that is what growth is all about. Knowledge doesn't guarantee growth. I wish it did. Because I invest a huge amount of time trying to gain more knowledge. I read, I listen, I think, I write, I read, I think, I listen, I write, trying to gain more knowledge. But knowledge does not guarantee my growth. Dick Biggs, nobody ever heard of Dick Boggs, but you've heard of Dick Biggs, right? Right, okay. Dick Biggs said, "The greatest gap in life is the one between knowing and doing." We can amass a great amount of experience and knowledge and not change at all if we don't do something with it. Deep down, our problem is not a lack of information. Our problem is application. And so as we talk together today and we try to share some things about dynamic living and about my experience over the last months of applying dynamic living, I hope that we'll keep in mind that it is the application of what I've been teaching that made a difference in my life, not just the teaching of it, not just the reading of the massive number of books that I've read, or the seminars that I've attended, or the audios that I've listened to. It is a matter of applying that which I've learned that changed my life. Someone, and I don't know who said it originally, I'm not going to guess. I think I know, but I'm not sure. So if you know, don't tell me now. Tell me later. To know and not to do is not to know. And some of you are sitting there thinking, Skip, I thought you said that. Here's the truth. I have said it again and again and again. To know and not to do is not to know. Many people say, I know that. I know that. You try to remind them of it because they didn't do it again. I know that. I know that. But to say you know and not to do it says you really don't know. My preparation for today was a crucial factor in taking the next step of growth for me. It is always of interest to me how times have come in my life when the study that someone asked me to do or that I moved towards was a study that was primarily, in retrospect looking at it, was primarily for my benefit to grow into the person I am capable of becoming. My desire is that it always will help somebody else. But this critical step of growth, and I think it's also important to repeat something I used to say at every dynamic living seminar. I moved away from it a little bit because I sensed a resistance on the part of people. Here's the statement. Growth is always painful. Not sometimes, not ever so often, not even most of the time. Growth is always painful. So since we decided to do this live streaming event, my preparation began, and there were times during the preparation when it was very painful to me. I don't mean painful physically, although I make another observation with you today. When there is pain emotionally, there oftentimes has the accompanying pain physically. And sometimes when we're struggling with things emotionally, it's reflected in the body not being able to keep up physically as it ordinarily would. So there are people, this by the way did not happen to me during this past couple of weeks I've been preparing, but there are people who, because of emotional stress and the pain of something they're going through to grow to be what they are capable of becoming, they actually get physically ill in the hospital, in the doctor's care, to find out what it is that's going wrong. What went wrong was something that happened emotionally in the thought process, and it affected the physical as well and brought great pain in some cases. So the struggle that I have gone through to make sure that I was ready to talk with you became more than just a preparation to talk to you. It became a preparation to talk to me to move the next step in personal growth. To understand once again that unless I am willing to walk through what I teach, I don't deserve the right to teach it. Doesn't mean I walk through perfectly. Doesn't mean I never take a step back. Doesn't mean that I never have a misstep. But if I'm not willing to take the next step, regardless of what that, sometimes I fall down. I was talking with a good friend just yesterday, and he said, you know, sometimes I just fall flat on my face. I said, I know what you mean. I do the same thing. And so there are times when that process of taking the next step is one that brings embarrassment. Sometimes it brings, I don't know about you, but embarrassment for me is a painful experience. I don't like to be embarrassed. I just don't. I don't like to look dumb. I don't like to look stupid. I want to make sure that everything I say is perfect when it's not. And sometimes I don't say it quite like it should have been or could have been said. I've learned to live with that better now than I did 20 years ago. All of that to say this. In making sure that I was ready to speak with you, I had to first of all speak to me. And so the personal growth that I talk about that is a part of today, I don't ever want the misconception that growth for me is automatic. Or just because I read a lot, or I listen a lot, or I have a lot of experiences of life, there is nothing about that that brings automatic growth to me. But growth is important. And so I encourage you as well to move in those directions. The communication connection that I want to talk a little bit more about. Our communication together with many of you who are on this live streaming event has been limited because of certain conditions imposed upon us by the challenges that I have faced. I would be open to say to you sometimes the communication connection with me and with others has little to do with me and more to do with them and how they're relating to me. There are times when people just get upset with me or frustrated with me or don't feel that I'm adding anything to their focus is someplace else. And I'm not a part of it. I understand that. But the limitations imposed upon us during these last months when there has been so little connection with many of you has brought some real challenges for me, particularly when we start talking about dynamic living. And I realize there's a segment here where I'm going to talk about specifically about lessons learned, but from time to time I'm going to toss something in because I think of it as I'm talking with you. And then I've been challenged by some of the things that I have taught in dynamic living for years. Here's one. I have unbounded energy. I have said that so often. And I can tell you that 7 months ago, I was challenged because I didn't have enough energy to walk from our living room floor up the stairs, 20 steps to our bedroom up the stairs without stopping in the middle to regain some energy to take another step. It was a difficult process for me. And I began to understand that my statement, I have unbounded energy, capacity is a state of mind. Have I backed away from that? No. I'm not backing away from it because I believe, I believe that history of using I have unbounded energy helped me during the process of gaining the strength back that a physical challenge took away from me. I think it's the same for you. I think you can experience the same kind of thing. So the physical challenge that came imposed a separation of connection for us, and we are grateful to be able to reconnect with many of you and to move forward in that way. The Circle A sabbatical part of this whole picture, I'd like to just say a few more things about that. Circle A, as many of you know, is the primary dream and focus of my outreach in life. And so when that was challenged in terms of my being able to continue it, that was not a pleasant experience for me. And as those of you who were with us last summer in Colorado, you know that I was already having some physical challenges at that time and was able to come and do the seminars and come to a meal every once in a while in the dining hall, a function here and there throughout the course of the week. But for the most part, I did the seminar, went back to rest and recuperate for the next speaking. That was a difficult challenge. And so as this challenge continued to develop and became more significant, we felt it was important because of what's happening with me, because of a new baby coming into the life of Stephen and Jenny, and things going on in the life of Chris and Melody. It was a good year for us to come together as a family, to bring balance in our life as family, to bring balance in our life in the physical dimension, to bring balance in our life in the outreach to others, and just say, for this period of time, this summer, we're going to take a little time and balance, balance, balance. And I think on the promotional video for this, I said balance, 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 balance. It's a phrase I could hear myself saying from seminars for 40 years. I've been listening to myself saying that. You know, sometimes to know and not to do is not to know. And to know that balance is important is different than saying, I will take action on that. So we're taking this summer a sabbatical, and I think that the next thing in our communication connection today is to just to reaffirm once again our desire and our commitment to help you. My life is all about helping others. And it is still all about helping others. And so whether that be at a seminar someplace in the world at Network 21, or it be a personal counseling session of something that's going on in your marital life, or it's something that's happening at Circle A, or it's something that one of you is facing at school, one of you wonderful teenagers who's having a challenge at school, and I can be of help in that, I want to reaffirm and commit to all of you that that's what my life is all about. That's what I'm determined to do. I will do whatever is physically possible for me to do. I received an invitation to speak just 2 days ago, and it was an invitation to speak in Hawaii. I know that's a hard place to go, and some of you are crying for me right now. But anyhow, the invitation was to speak while we are there, and the folks who were inviting me said we don't want to impose on you. If you'd rather just sit back and kind of enjoy the seminar from your seat and enjoy the beautiful, but we'd like to have you speak. Here was my response. I promised my Creator many years ago that whenever I was asked to speak, if it was physically possible, I would speak. I am physically able. You asked. I'll be there. So just that recommitment to say, God is good, He is in control, and He's given me however long it is to continue to outreach to you and to people that you know and people that I will meet. Next comes our refresher on dynamic living. And I wrote a statement earlier today, just before things started. I was out in my office going over some notes, final thing, and I wrote this down. Why does it so often take a crisis to focus on purpose and priorities. Why is that? I believe you have experienced that. I know I have experienced that. That my focus on priorities and my purpose in life is so much more. I started to say focused. I just said focused, didn't I? Well, it's focused now than it was even a few months ago. Now maybe even more than it was just a few weeks ago. Why is it that it takes the crisis of life in order for us to focus on what life is really all about anyhow? Now, there are lots of things that we could say about it, lots of things you could say. It's a busy time, it's a busy world, it's a busy. I agree. But here are the three questions. These came from another experience of my life, and some of you will recognize it. Wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be smarter? Wouldn't it be wiser to live life in the focal center of purpose and priority all the time? That was my question for me before I walked in here. Here's my answer. Yes. And if you agree with me, why don't you just say yes? Yes. Two of you?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Say it like you mean it.
Yes.
Those of you listening out there, you say, Skip, it's just me. Who will? You will know. But there are other people here who aren't going to say yes. You know, they're going to think I'm weird. It's okay. Yes, it's worth it to focus on the priority and purpose of life all the time. So, I was having a little fun with my iPad over the course of the last few days, discovered that this new one, now I have the ability just to hold it over some pre-printed notes. It automatically takes the picture and puts it in a slide series on my iPad. It's marvelous. So I have all my notes for dynamic living right in front of me on my iPad, right? It's good. Dynamic living is all about becoming all we are created to be. That is the truth of your Creator. You can become all you were created to be. Now, obviously, the question has to be asked, what was I created to be? And that's all about purpose and priority. And though we may not get into detail on any of that today, there may be a time when we'll do another workshop just on that aspect. What are you created to be? What am I created to be? What is my purpose and my priority in life? We are created to be all that God created us to be. Many years ago, if I can go back with you, because I told you I sat and listened to this Texas Spectacular was the name of the audio. It was an hour and 35 minutes. Supposed to be an hour and a half. I went 5 minutes over, which is probably about what I'll do today. But it was a fundraising rally designed to help one of our close friends who had run for political office and wasn't elected retire the debt that he had built up from all of the campaigning that he had done, and it amounted to thousands of dollars. And when you aren't elected, nobody is interested in helping you pay off your campaign debt. So the rally was primarily to help him pay off. None of us took any income from it, traveled at our own expense, and little did I know that somebody was there who would record that, and that particular audio would be duplicated hundreds of thousands of times. I don't know at this point how many times, but I haven't listened to it very often, so I sat down and listened to the whole thing. It was very, very interesting, entertaining, somewhat challenging. And I was reminded of the meeting that I organized and invited the speaker to come in and speak, who during the course of his speech to 800 of my business associates, he said, "You have right now exactly what you want." And I said, listening to this was somewhat challenging to me because in the midst of listening, I'm thinking to 8 months ago, when I received a printout from the doctor telling me exactly what was going on in my body. And I said, now wait a minute, how does this fit together? You have right now exactly what you want. Over the years, I've come to understand my meaning for that. I don't know what he meant by it. He is long gone, doing other things. But my understanding of it has become this. At any individual point in my life, I make decisions. I make choices. You make decisions. You make choices. Every time I make a choice, the choice I make is one that I believe will make me happy. Now, sometimes they are conflicting choices. Sometimes there are difficult choices. Sometimes one has almost as many disadvantages as the other has. Sometimes one has almost as many advantages as the other. But I make a choice, and I make the choice on the basis of what I believe will make me happy. So that at any point in time in my life, whatever has happened as a result of the choice I made to that point, I have what I want. I can change it, but at that moment, I have exactly what I want. So I've got to thinking of all the choices I've made over the course of my lifetime, and some of our choices are beyond our control. DNA and heredity and some of those kinds of things may have inclined me more towards a certain disease than other things, but I've made choices all of my life, some of which were really good about my health and some of which were not good at all. I never was concerned much about it because I always felt good. I had the energy. I had the health. Everything I thought I wanted, I had. And all of a sudden I had something I didn't think I wanted, but I made choices that brought me to that point. I don't know if that helps you, but it helps me. I just had to pause that audio and say, okay, wait a minute, Skip. You said that so many years ago. He said that. Is that still true? That is still true, in spite of what I've gone through. So we're together today for me to say to you, you have right now exactly what you want. And if you back off and you say, whoa, wait a minute, let me look at this and analyze, I don't think you're right, I would encourage you to just say, Skip, you're right, but I can change it, because you can. So, over the course of reading and studying and trying to prove the guy was wrong, I discovered he was more right than he thought he was. There was more to this whole process than he thought. And so I developed over the course of time a seminar called Dynamic Living. Many of you have been in attendance. Many of you have listened to it. Some of you watched video of it. But let's just review. For we who are here today and we who are here today and those who will watch this on the website tomorrow or the next day or a month from now or a year from now, the formula of dynamic living is this: DL equals GGE plus PS times PSI. Now, I don't know about you who are listening with us from various parts of the world, but the people who are sitting here with me right now, nobody jumped up and down, nobody screamed, nobody hollered, nobody applauded. I'm a little put off by that because this is my one major original contribution in life. and I'm applauding, I'm celebrating, but at any rate, DL, dynamic living. I'll define it for you in a moment. Dynamic living equals God-given equipment, GGE, plus PS, the principles of success, times PSI multiplied by the power of a proper self-image. The truth of the matter is everybody has God-given equipment. Everybody. Everybody. You have God-given equipment. You are uniquely created. And you only can appreciate that if you, oh, I'm supposed to talk to me, aren't I? Skip. You can only appreciate that you are uniquely created if you refuse to compare yourself with other people. I can't appreciate my uniqueness if I am constantly comparing myself with others. I had a challenge with that for many years of my life. Can I be real honest with you today?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Hopefully, at home you're saying the same thing. I still struggle with that. Comparing myself with others. I even, you know, confession is bad for the reputation, I'm told. But on the other hand, in keeping with what I want to close our time with together today, you'll understand why I'm saying it right now. And that is, living a life of integrity forces me to say, even in this last 2 weeks, I was faced with that challenge. What could I say to you that would be worthwhile, that would be better than what somebody else might be saying to you? Fortunately, I am now able to catch myself the moment I start to veer on that road. And simply to say, Skip, it doesn't matter. That's not the question. The question is, have you experienced something that's changed your life for the better? Are you willing to share it? And if so, get on with it. And for someone, it will make the difference. And that's what we're all about. So, God-given equipment. We all have God-given equipment. Without taking a lot of time on that because we don't have time, we all have access to the principles of success. They're operational in our lives all the time. Most people are never told what they are, so they don't know how to use them for their benefit. Much of the time, the principles that bring a successful conclusion in life are used to hold people back rather than to propel them forward. And as we just kind of chat about a few of those in a few minutes, you'll begin to understand and see how that's true. So the principles of success are as certain as the law of gravity that says if I step off the roof of my house, I can say I don't believe in gravity all the way to the ground. But when I arrive at the ground, I will have to say, yep, it still works. That is, if I'm able to say it. It still works. Gravity works. So, principles of success. As I was listening to the Texas Spectacular, I found myself listening to me saying there are 8 principles of success. That's what I originally understood. That's what I applied. As the years progressed, there became 10 principles of success. And I taught that for years. Right now, I understand there to be 12 principles of success. And if you've not been with me recently, you don't know the last 2, and I may or may not get to them today. I may leave a little something to draw you back the next time. Okay, the principles of success. So, we all have access to the principles. We all have God-given equipment. Then why are we not all equally successful and productive and building loving, wonderful relationships? It is that final ingredient, the PSI, proper self-image. that is the multiplying power of the formula. So that if I don't believe I've got God-given equipment, or if I am using the principles of success to my detriment rather than to my benefit, my image of myself will multiply the effects of all of that to my life, and there'll come a point in time when I will say to myself, self, if this is what life is all about, why live it? I don't think I can keep going. And the desire to end life is more profound today, and a higher percentage of people today than it was when I started teaching all this years ago. It, quite frankly, is sometimes even glorified to end life. It is becoming okay in the eyes of some to get assistance to end life. Life wasn't meant to live that way, in my opinion. And so the proper self-image is the final thing that we'll talk about. Dynamic living, what's it all about? Dynamic living is that kind of a life which is filled with joy and happiness all the time, free of fear, free of worry, continually in the process of accomplishing worthwhile goals, and is totally well adjusted in life's 6 major areas, which include business, home, social, physical, mental, spiritual. Is that the way you understand life? For some of you, it's yes. For some of you, no. For some of you, I don't know. For some of you, well, I would add, and it's okay. However you want to feel about it. That is my understanding of life as it was designed for me to live it, and that's my goal. As I move day to day, as I take the next step of growth, that's my goal, to live a life filled with joy and happiness all the time. Recently, I was talking with a gentleman who does not know me, I do not know him. We were meeting for the very first time, but he asked me a question that opened the door to talk about Circle A, working with kids, and the seminar on dynamic living. And I gave him this definition, filled with joy and happiness all the time. Oftentimes, if somebody's going to get tripped up on something, that's probably far enough. You don't need to go much further than that for a lot of people. It's, whoa, no, come on, Skip. Joy and happiness all the time? Even in the midst of life-threatening illness, joy and happiness? Get serious. I am serious. I said to him, you know, oftentimes people think that there's a difference between joy and happiness. And I agree that if we wanted to really push the definitions, if we had 3 or 4 hours to talk about the difference between joy and happiness, we could find a difference with which many people would be more comfortable than they are simply by saying as I do here. Putting them together is discomfort for a lot of people. It's okay. Joy and happiness. My focus in happiness is joy. And if I'm experiencing joy, I can make the choice to be happy, because happiness is a choice. Okay, free of fear, free of worry, continuing the process of accomplishing worthwhile goals, totally well adjusted in life's 6 major areas: business, home, social, physical, mental, spiritual. It appears to me that that may be a good point at which to take a short break. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. You go have a drink of water, do what you need to do, come back. We'll be here. And welcome back from wherever you've been. Delighted to be able to continue our chat together. I realized something as I was looking at the clock, and that is a problem that I frequently have, and that is that I have prepared more material than what I have time to get through today. So our brief look at dynamic living will indeed be brief look at dynamic living. During the break, Stephen shared with me the fact that we are hearing from people from all across the United States. He gave me a list of states. I don't have that. He also said there are people from around the world that are listening in. Our friends down in Australia, it's 4:30 a.m. down there. Okay. We're delighted you're with us live and can hardly wait to see all of you again. I noticed Italy and Lithuania, and I shouldn't name any of them without naming all of them. Many of our folks in Hellas are with us. So welcome back. And in thinking in terms of this break, we also got several questions, a number of questions that came in. And if I start answering questions, I don't have time to get to what I need to get to today. So here's what will happen. Probably the end of this next week, I will sit down with a camera and Stephen. I will go through those questions and I will answer those questions. It will be posted on the website. So if you've asked a question, just go to that. It won't be long because they're not going to be a massive number of questions. But if you've asked a question, go and take a listen. There is one that I may not get finished this week because I think it's a little bit more detailed. It will take probably a whole workshop to answer one of the questions that came in. But outside of that, if you had a question, you sent it in to us. I will sit down, and Stephen said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure. That's what I want to do." So that's what I will do. So back to the dynamic living seminar and a kind of review, continuing the process of accomplishing worthwhile goals. If you aren't accomplishing the goals that you think you wanted at some point in time, then take a look at your value structure. Because the values by which we live our lives is where our goals come from. So if you are accomplishing things that are not bringing joy and happiness and satisfaction and significance in life, then it's time to take a look at the value structure that produced those goals, those dreams, those desires, and find out where is the conflict. Because you and I are designed as goal-seeking people. And we are designed to have goals that bring joy and happiness to our lives. And if we are in conflict between the goals that are being accomplished and the joy and happiness of life, then it's time to come back and say, okay, what is the value structure upon which I have based these choices and these decisions? Most people, as I think I've said to many of you, set goals backwards. That is, they take a look at what everybody else has done. They take a look at their own abilities and they say, okay, on the basis of what I know about others, on the basis of what I know about me, at this time, I will project to the future. I will set my goal backwards. Decide what you want and set the goal. Totally well adjusted in life's 6 major areas: business, home, social, physical, mental, spiritual. I have often said, I will repeat it here because I think it's important, in light of all the reasons that people have joined us on this particular live streaming event. If I only had one of these areas that I had to pick and focus my attention on and become really good in that one area of life, it will be my spiritual life. That is the most important. Everything else rises and falls with that from my perspective. But fortunately for you and for me as human beings, we don't have to make that single choice. We all have other areas of life, and those other areas of life need our attention. They need balance. And when we are not in balance in one of those areas, life is kind of bumpy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like trying to drive with a flat tire. You may never try to do that, but I have. In fact, I drove so far one day that I only had little shreds of rubber left on the rim, but I didn't have a spare, and I wasn't going to walk as far as it was going to take. And I think I had to replace the rim too. Anyhow, our look then at the principles of success. That's where I want to just invest a little bit of time, because most people are never told what they are, and because they don't know what the principles of success are, in spite of the fact that they always are working, because most of us have a negative orientation towards life, and we've never done anything to change that initial concept that says, I don't amount to much. We are working with principles that will continue to hold us locked into where we are. So let's take a look quickly at them. Number one is the principle of giving. The summary statement, as most of you know, or many of you know, is whatever you give, you receive. What goes out from you comes back to you. That's the principle of giving. It always works. And it doesn't matter to me whether you're talking about planting potatoes and getting potatoes, planting corn and getting corn, or planting love and getting love, or hate and getting hate. Or, as I've enjoyed saying to audiences for many years, planting $10 bills and getting $100 bills. It's the principles always works. Whatever you give, you receive. Now, the principle of giving is such a powerful thing. And again, remind ourselves that if we aren't familiar with what that principle is, that whatever goes out from us comes back to us, whatever we give, we receive, and we are negatively oriented towards life or towards people or towards relationships, and we are a critical human being, or we are a gossip, or we are constantly putting people down, all of that is information that we're sending out. We're planting seeds. We're growing crops. And those crops will come back to us. Whatever you give, you receive. If it's criticism, if it's anger, if it's jealousy, if it's love, if it's hope, if it's despair, whatever we give, we receive. I don't even know how to overemphasize that. Sometimes I think if I just say it again and again and again, or I talk about the 5 stepping stones to the principle of giving, which I do in a longer seminar, that somehow the massive amount of material will emphasize how crucial that is and how unaware most of us are about the power of giving. We know a little bit about it. We think that somehow there's a connection here or there, but it's not enough of an awareness to make us constantly observing, what am I giving? What is going out? What am I sharing? What am I saying? What am I giving that I know is coming back? And then the next step of the process is, do I want to receive what I just gave? Boy, that's an important question. And the next time you're ready to haul off and criticize somebody, just stop and say, do I want to be the recipient of what I was just about to say to him? Boy, it makes such a difference in how we relate to people. Because much of the time, that criticism, that put down, that gossip, that belittling, that one-upsmanship, that sarcasm, the things that so easily flow from us, particularly in the society in which we live today, which considers a lot of those things to be humorous. We're sarcastic in order to get a laugh. We put down and make fun of people in order to get a laugh from others. So in a society where we want to be giving humor to people, we think that somehow we can give something else that doesn't give a good result in order to get humor over here, that's not the seed we're planting. Sarcasm is not the seeds of humor, even though it's interpreted that way by many. Again, if we had a long time, we'd go into a lot of those details. I challenge myself oftentimes. And I back off from things I could say frequently before I say them, because I have asked myself, Skip, is that what you want to receive? If somebody else was about ready to dump that on you, would you receive it with open arms? Would that be a source of encouragement to you? And if I decide that's not something that would be of encouragement to me, then I cannot afford to give it to somebody else, because sooner or later it does and will come back to me. The second principle, and again, as I was listening to this Texas Spectacular, the second principle was the law of vacuum. And it's a good, I mean, it was a good phrase. It didn't really say what I wanted to say after I began to understand the principle better. Create a vacuum in your life, because nature abhors a vacuum. And when one is created, it will do everything it can to fill that empty space. Well, the principle of exclusion is what we talk about today. And that's all about getting rid of what you don't want in order to make room for what you do want. We've had lots of fun with people over the years, and I do it ever so often myself. I did it again just recently. I'm not as good at this as I should be in terms of accumulating things, books, books, and books. And the other day, well, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a little longer than that now, maybe a couple months ago, I stopped myself and said, you know, if I want new books, if I want to be reading something new, I really need to get rid of some of the old ones, because somebody else will find those new and they will enjoy them. I've read them, I've gotten what I need from them. Why not move them on? So there were boxes of books that left here, and there are still boxes to go. But it makes room for new. Get rid of what you don't want. I used to have a lot of fun, as I started to say, with clothes. You know, get rid of what you don't want. You got something in your closet you haven't worn for a year, get rid of it. Give it away. Donate it. Find somebody, and this is a thought that has hit me frequently. Really, I walked into my closet recently, and I looked at some shirts, and I had golf shirts. I love to play golf. Haven't played much golf in the last 8 months, but I'm ready to start again. And I looked in my closet. I have 38 golf shirts. I could wear a different golf shirt every day for 38 days. And here's the thought that hit me. There are kids in our world today. There are people in our world today who don't have one golf shirt, who've been wearing the same shirt for 4 years, 5 years, 8 years. Why not give what I don't need and want so that somebody else can enjoy? Because that process, it's inevitable. It always works. Here's what I know. Within a matter of, I don't know, maybe a day, maybe a week, maybe a month at the most, there'll be a new golf shirt hanging in my closet. And maybe I will have bought it, and maybe somebody will have given it to me. But the principle works. Get rid of what you don't want. Clothes is a fun one to talk about, because almost everybody I know would like to have some new clothes. Not room for new clothes until you get rid of the old clothes that you aren't wearing, using. Now, fun to talk about clothes, fun to talk about books, fun to talk about other material things, not so much fun to talk about attitudes. but that's really where I want to go with me. I want to say, Skip, what attitude do you have that you could get rid of in order to make room for a better attitude? Here's what I want you to know about me. That is a constant process. There's not assumption on my part that I somehow got a good attitude 30 years ago and I still got a good attitude. As I got a better attitude, I became aware of parts of that attitude that could be even better. More compassionate, more understanding, more loving, more receptive. There are lots of areas of attitude that I can continue to improve on, but not as long as I'm holding on to the bad attitude. I can't be more loving if I'm holding on to bitterness. I can't be more accepting if I'm holding on to rejection. So get rid of what you don't want in order to make room for what you do want. It has to do with friends. Again, listening to Texas Spectacular, I was reminded of some very good friends. I mean, I could tell you their name right now. I'm not going to. I finally had to say, I love you, I appreciate you, but we're going to have to say goodbye. I'm either coming to where you are, or you're coming to where I am, or we're parting company. That's the only choice we've got. Get rid of what you don't want to make room for what you do want. Here's my challenge to me, to you. Get rid of everything negative in your life, except you. I'm not suggesting you get rid of you. Your spouse and your children, both of whom are an extension of you. Outside of that, if it's negative, get rid of it. Well, I take too much time on that one because I get really wrapped up in that exclusion. Get rid of what you don't want to make room for what you do want. You could probably talk with me and I could talk with you about all the things that I really want, all the things you really want. But if there's no room for what we want, it will never become reality in our lives. The third principle of success is the principle of creation. Creation became a word that I was comfortable with using in spite of the fact I know I'm not God. We started today by saying God is God and I am not. God created. I did not. But in the sense that I can create by my thoughts, the principle of creation says decide what you want, define it clearly, and write it down. Decide, define, write it down. Decide, define, write it down. I was okay about deciding when I first became exposed to this kind of teaching and understanding in my life. I got to where I was okay with defining it clearly, specifically. It was not a matter of I want a new car. My goal is a new car. It became a matter of I want a brand new Tesla, black. White interior, drive itself. All I have to do is sit there and push a button to start, and it turns and it goes in the fast lane and comes back in and parks itself. And that's different than say I want a new car. Of course, there's a difference in cost in that one and others. But decide, define, write it down. That's the one I had the most trouble with. That's the one I find most people have most trouble with. Most people have the inner feeling, whether verbalized or not, I know what I want, I don't see the benefit in writing it down, therefore I'm not going to do it because I don't think it helps. That's where I was. And I was that way for years. Can I be real honest with you today?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Oh, sometimes I wish I wouldn't ask that question. There are times when I've gotten away from writing it down. It's another one of those things. If there is so much power and benefit in writing it down, why would we ever come to a place? Isn't it better? Isn't it smarter? Isn't it wiser to write it down? Yep, it is. Once in a while, I veer off from that. I got to bring myself back. Write it down in the present positive state as though it is currently a reality. I have a Tesla. I really do. Nice car. Anyhow, principle number 4 is the principle of visualization. The principle of visualization says get a clear mental picture, infuse it with emotion, and hold on. The mind is such a powerful, powerful possession. The clearer the picture we give it of what we want it to work on accomplishing, the more likely it is to be accomplished, the more rapidly it will be accomplished. So isn't it better, isn't it smarter, isn't it wiser just to get a picture of what you want, what I want? Answer, yes. The home that we're enjoying time in together today was a picture in Susan's planner and on her mirror for several years. Today we live there. We've been here now for 22 years. There has not ever been one time in 22 years driving in our driveway that I have not had the thought as I drove in, I am so grateful and blessed to be living in this home of our dreams. That has to do with some other principles that we'll talk about, but it was a picture. Visualize it. Infuse it with emotion. See yourself in it. Feel yourself in it. Whatever it is, car, home, whatever it is that's a part of your list. Number 5 is the principle of command. The principle of command says, thou shalt decree a thing out of thy mouth, and it shall be established unto thee. Now, I say it that way because of Texas Spectacular. That's the way I put it in those days. I was very conversant with King James in those days. And I'm still conversant with King James today, but I put it more often in these terms. Whatever you speak out of your mouth will happen. So watch out what you say. What you say is what you get. There is no way that I can emphasize enough, again, with this principle, how powerful it is and how little attention most of us pay to it. We let things fly. We speak things in the moment. Where the moment of anger, the moment of frustration, the moment of joy, the moment of whatever it is, we let it fly without thinking about what we have just said. And if literally whatever you said became reality in your life instantaneously, believe me, we would take more caution about what we say. But it isn't instantaneous. In fact, many times it's just slowly over a period of time that we hardly realize there's a change taking place. That would be true on the positive side as well as on the negative side of life. Number 6, principle of action. We made a little reference to this earlier, but as a summary statement, it says, do it now. Do it now. Procrastination is one of the major energy robbers in the life of any human being. And I have seen the effects of procrastination in my own life. I have seen the effects of action in my own life. again and again and again, and action is the principle that I want to live by. I am a person of action. I do what needs to be done now. Not next week, next year, next month. Now. Now, now, now. Number 7 is the principle of faith. The principle of faith, again, I go to my biblical background, that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things we cannot see. I can see this book, by the way. This is a book many of you would have never seen, would not be familiar with. But many of you have heard me talk about that first day I sat down to write out a description of the kind of person I want to be. It's in this book. It's a calendar. But it's what I had available, and I just started writing. Several pages, 33 characteristics of who it is I want to be as a person. Most of those are reality in my life today. Others have been added. I can see this book. But faith says, I can see, I can experience, I can interact with, I can take action upon even that which I cannot see. Faith becomes the substance of it. I don't have to see the book to know that the description of my life is written down in that book. Number 8, enthusiasm. Oh, when I was reminded in my listening and study this week of a gal by the name of Dottie Walters. Dottie Walters was a professional motivational speaker that I listened to in those early days of my growth in this area of life. And Dottie Walters said, you have to have enthusiasm. The first time I heard her say that, I thought, not me. I have to have a little bit more control of myself, my environment. I am reserved. I am not flamboyant. I am not all sorts of things. Well, I don't think that screaming and hollering and jumping up and down is necessarily showing enthusiasm. I believe it's one of the expressions of enthusiasm. But enthusiasm, it's really more a matter of giving everything you've got to everything you do. That's what enthusiasm is all about. Everything you've got to everything you do. And whether that's sitting in your living room watching in another part of the world and focused and taking notes with nobody else around, you're giving everything you've got. Or those who are here in this room with us, who it's a little bit more important, a little bit in terms of other people around you to be focused on what I'm doing up here. And if you're just sitting alone in your living room, nobody watching, nobody knows. But enthusiasm says, doesn't matter what's going on. I give everything I've got to everything I do. When I'm trying to express my appreciation to somebody, I give everything I've got to that process of expressing appreciation. It's not just a thanks. There is a difference between investing ourselves in everything we do and just going through the motions. We all know that, feel that. Number 9 is the principle of self-discipline. Self-discipline says do it anyhow. Do what needs to be done when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. Boy, there are things in life that you and I may not want to do. Self-discipline says, do it anyhow. Do it anyhow. Number 10 is the principle of persistence. Persistence says, I will until. I will until. Continue to pursue the goal, the hope, the dream until it's accomplished. That's the principle. Well, proper self-image, which is the multiplying power of the formula, which well could take about 4 or 5 hours, it is our last little segment of review of dynamic living. PSI, proper self-image. The me I see is the me I'll be. I mentioned to you when we began our time together today the new website, skipross.com/media. and scrolling down just a ways on that, you'll find some of the music that I recorded years ago. I think the first one was recorded in 1979. And then there were others, 1987, I think, was another couple of them, and then the last two. And in the last two albums, which all have been digitally remastered and made available to you. If you want to listen, they're there. Download, enjoy, be my guest. Susan and I have had a great time listening. Susan has always been my biggest fan. So if I need a little encouragement, I just turn my singing on and she's every other singer in the universe is compared to me. Oh, he's got such a clear tone, like you. He enunciates so you can understand everything like you. So we've had a great time listening. There is a song, the point of all this, there is a song on there written especially for me by Dave Williamson, a good friend of mine who was the composer-conductor of the orchestra for the albums that I did. And it's all about the me I see is the me I'll be. And I think it's a great song, and I wish I could still sing it. I can, in a little lower key. And there must be somebody listening to me today that can tell me the best software to get to lower the key of tracks so that I can sing whatever I want to sing once again. The singing voice has come down like the speaking voice has as well. I am what I am is what a lot of people say. What difference does it make who I think I am? It makes all the difference in the world. That picture that we have of the person inside of us is the self-image. Who do you think you are? Everything you think, feel, and do is always consistent with the person you believe yourself to be. That's a direct quote from my friend Zig Ziglar, who's gone on now to his reward, but he affected the lives of hundreds of thousands, including mine. The person you believe yourself to be is crucial to everything else in life. And you will never do anything, think anything, feel anything that is in contrast with the person you believe yourself to be. So the concept of developing your own self-image, it is constructed. It's not automatically given to you at birth. The image that we have, the picture on the inside, is constructed. And there are 6 steps that go into that process. We'll just briefly review them and take them more in detail at some other time. Number 1, understand the source of your self-concept. Where does that come from? Where does the picture that you have, that I have inside of me, that you have of you, where does that picture come from? It comes from everything that's happened to you. Everything that's been said about you. Everything that you have misunderstood that was said about you, that you thought was said about you, that wasn't really said about you, but you thought it was said about you. So because you thought it was said about you, you made that a part of your picture. It's a mistake. That is not who you are. That may not even be who the person who said you were that way, That may not be what they meant about you, but it's the way you understood it. So you begin to apply it. You begin to draw this picture. We compare ourselves with people all the time, and when we compare ourselves with people all the time, there is always something in somebody that's better than me. There is always something in me that is better than them when I make the comparison. And so whether it's feeling inferior to them or feeling superior and arrogant about who I am, those are both negative parts of a self-concept that I don't want a part of me. So it's a very practical thing, that image. Believe it can be changed. It can. I'm not the person today I was 40 years ago. I'm not the person I was 5 years ago. I'm not the person I was 8 months ago. And I will not be the same person 5 years from now that I am today. I'll be better. Because that's a choice I make. It's a choice you make. Write it. Decide what kind of a person you want to be is number 3. Number 4 is to write the description of that person down. And number 5 is to invest time with that person every day. You say, Skip, how do I invest time with the person I want to be every day? You read what you've written. You spend time with the person you believe yourself to be every day as it is. By the way you think about yourself. By the way you express yourself. You're investing time every day with that person. Get deliberate about investing time with the person you want to be on a daily basis. And the place where the person you really want to be is best defined is where you have written it down. Invest time every day. Read it. Read those things out loud every morning, every night, every morning, every night, every morning, every night, every morning, every night, every morning. Stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the eye, read the person you want to be. You say, Skip, come on. Really? In front of the mirror? Nobody around? Just me and myself and I? Yep. That's the one. Here's what I want for me. Because I want it for me, I want it for you. I want to fall head over heels in love with the person I am capable of becoming. I want you to fall head over heels in love with you so that you are not vindictive and self-judgmental. And because of that which goes on bad about you inside, it begins to boil out on other people. Number 6 is to be patient with you. And I will move on to finish my time with you. I think, here I am. So the 4th part of our time together today is the lessons learned. Lessons learned. I found it difficult at times to verbalize that. I found it more difficult to write it down. I would get the idea and then I would think, well, yeah, but I knew that. So let me just share 2 or 3 thoughts with you. Number 1 was to become more profoundly aware than ever in my life of the power of relationships. I saved this part to last because I had a feeling that I might have a little emotional reaction to this. I have on my desk next to me today this book, which is a book that was put together by a number of our friends and associates from around the world in recognition of my 80th birthday. I know I'm 26, but it's... The 4th journey to 26 is better than the 1st journey to 26. I'll tell you that for sure. And so this book is just an expression of their relationship with me. I can't tell you how powerful that's been. How encouraging, how uplifting, how the infusion of energy and hope and health that came as a result of this. And as emotional as I get about that, I get even more emotional about the relationship with my family. I have always been a rather private person. And though I have a loving relationship with my family and have all of my life, there's still a part of me that was me. It was personal, it's private. And when I got the information from the doctor saying I had stage 4 cancer with metastasis into a number of parts of my body and a very aggressive form, I said, here is a time for one of those principles that I've begun to learn, which is number 12, by the way. The principle being that of integrity. And so the two lessons that I want to communicate as strongly as I can is the power of relationship and living with integrity. When I got the news, I can tell you straight out without hesitation, as honestly, as filled with integrity as I can, that I read the report knowing that that is a report that sends the vast majority of people into a state of panic and fear from which they seldom recover. I can tell you, as I read the report and understood stage 4, aggressive, not long, there was not a moment of fear. Not one. Not even a blip. Why? Because for years I have assured myself, I have repeated again and again, there is no fear in love. I have lived with the repetition, with the affirmation that life is designed to be free of fear and free of worry. Does dynamic living work? Yes. Even when you hit the wall, it works. And so I called my family together and I said, everything I know about what's going on and the next steps, when I know it, you will know it. I will hold nothing back. I was not aware at that point what a profound effect on relationship, which was already great, but a relationship that was enhanced in a way that I could not have imagined. A sense of appreciation, of inviting them in for the journey that we were about to take. Relationship. This book expresses that as well with many of our friends around the world. And to live with integrity, to be open, to be honest. I'm not sure which comes first or which is more powerful. Can you have a real, meaningful human relationship without integrity? I don't think so. Can you have integrity and not develop meaningful relationships? I don't think so. And so they became this incredible opening of what the possibility of relationship with people and life and love was possible for me if I was willing to be open and honest and to live with integrity. And the final thing I had some major thoughts about, and I know I can't get into the details of it today, but it's to be teachable. As it became obvious of my challenge and people began to find out about it, here's what I discovered. There are a lot of people who have a lot of information that they want to give. And there are a lot of people who want a lot of information about what I'm going through. And there are a lot of people who are willing to give all sorts of counsel and guidance of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And I can openly, honestly say to you today, I've understood that teachable gives me the ability to receive all of that without judgment. But I also understand that being teachable allows me to take that input and recognize the fact that at some point I have to make a choice as to where I go and what I do and what I apply and what I use. And that's true in my business. It's true in my relationship with my children. It's true in my relationship with my wife, with our close friends, with our friends around the world. I welcomed that input, but I understood that there were certain things that I had to take and apply. I understood that there were certain things that I could talk about, and there are certain things I couldn't talk about. Because in talking about those things, and maybe it's easier for me to just put it in terms of some of you young people and your parents. You know, there are times in our relationship with our parents where we think I can't be open with them. I've talked to so many of my friends, and your friends will give you all the input that you can possibly ever want or imagine. It will flow. Whatever you need to know, want to know, not want to know. And the fact of the matter is they're willing to give input for the most part because they haven't figured out how to have a very good relationship with their parents either. Or parents, let me talk to you. If you're having a challenge parenting your children, you may be tempted to go to all sorts of other parents and read books and all that, and that's good. Just understand that whatever I wanted in terms of a solution to my physical problem, whatever you want in terms of a solution to your marital problem, whatever you want in terms of your solution with a parent problem, a children problem, there is somebody, someplace that will tell you exactly what you want to hear, and it may not help you at all. So I had to learn to receive, to be teachable, but then to be accountable for the information that I received and the faithful, habitual application of that information to my life. I've been gathering the information for over 40 years. Does it work? Yes. Are there lots of approaches to how life should be lived out there? Yes. And whatever I wanted, I could find somebody who would do. Whatever I want to eat, I can find somebody who tells me it's good for me to eat that. I read an article recently that told me all the reasons why it was okay for me to drink as much coffee as I could. I read one, not that I wanted to drink coffee, but this next one you'll understand. I read an article recently that told me all the reasons why it was okay for me to eat ice cream. Oh, I looked a long way for that information. I tell you that for sure. But I had to be responsible to say, okay, that's input from an authority. They claim to be an authority. They give input. I have input over here. I have input from here. I have input from here. At some point in time, I have to decide and move forward with my life, with my business, with my wife, with my children. I have to decide and move forward on the basis of what I deem to be the best choice. That's what I've done. And I'm here today to say to you, dynamic living works. And the habits that I've developed over the years brought me through. The friends that I've developed over the years sustained me. The family that God gifted me with has been my source of strength and hope. Well, look at the future. We're going to do this again. I hope you'll join us. We'll keep you informed. Circle A, 40th anniversary celebration next year. You'll get details on that rather soon. We got some good things planned. Personal goals. I planned to finish 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to take 3 more or 4. I have written goals for years, and I've accomplished a huge percentage of those. There are certain goals that I have written that nobody has been aware of them except me. Even a couple of them that Susan would not have been totally aware of. And I can tell you that one of the goals, and this is for those of you who are familiar with our business, and one of the goals I wrote down years ago is that my dream was to speak again at the Network 21 National Convention. I had not spoken there for 15 years. I spoke all over the world, but I had not spoken in North America. 15 years. That was on my goal list. Nobody knew that. On the day that I received the information that I was in stage 4, I received an invitation from Network 21 to speak at the National Convention with the assigned topic of how to overcome fear. I have some other goals. You know, when you've written a goal that seems so far out that you come to a point where you say, that's never going to happen. Do you come to that point? Is that a helpful point to? I found that's not a helpful point for me to come to. I have a goal that I wrote down years and years and years and years and years ago. It's still on my goal list. It does not appear for many, many reasons that this one can physically happen, let alone everything else that would need to go with it. It's still there. Why? Because it's a source of inspiration to me. It's a source of hope and strength. Even though it may not be possible, it's still, every time I think about it, that feeling rises within me, that hope, that strength. That's what you do with dreams that are still out there. You don't give up on them. You say, well, Skip, come on. What is the, all right, I'm going to tell you. I shouldn't do this. Years ago, I wrote down on my goal list, I am singing in the Sydney Opera House. These vocal cords aren't what they used to be, folks. And the Sydney Opera House is a long ways away. Is the goal still on my goal list? Absolutely. Is it likely that I'm going to sing there, do a concert there? Not likely. Not within the realm of how most people look at things. Am I going to take it off the goal? I have another one to record another album. Just hymns. That one's probably more possible than Sydney. But are they still there? Yes, they're there because they give hope. They give encouragement. I could look at that and say, oh, I'll never be able to do that. It's not good for me. It's my final thought for our time together today. Here's my final challenge. I said it was a 90-day challenge. I changed it to actually it's a 152. This is a book put together by my friends of great and wonderful things that they had to say about me And I got it before I died. Many people never hear these things because they're only said at the celebration service when they're gone. Here's my challenge. Every week, 52 weeks, find one person in your life. Each week, one person, 52 people. Maybe it's the same person every week for 52 weeks. It's all right with me. Just one time every week for this next year. Find some person and tell them what they mean to you. Encourage, uplift, and edify them. It will make such a magnificent difference to them. There are people in your life that have never heard somebody say the kinds of things that you could say about them, and say it with all honesty. Why not do that and see how it changes your life? My goal today has been to change me, and in that process to do something that has the potential of allowing you to change you. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day.